Shalom, giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rahakwadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations, as always, to the elect. And this is going to be a response to a comment that was left on one of my recent videos, where I was going into, the Roman Empire, being the dragon spoken of in the book of Revelation 12 and 13, as John the Revelator, gave a vision. He received a vision and wrote these things down. Here in these latter days, the men of the Lord have been sent to expound on these things. And, I guess someone who was watching, as you can see, Snicker bar consciousness, all right? Which, the name, that name in itself, but, as you can see, he said, or she said, whoever this is, said, the dragon is Satan, brother. All right? The dragon is Satan, brother, man, not no white man. But he is working through the wicked who have the power. All right? Now, what he's alluding to is when you get the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter, John the Revelator, he gives you the outline of this beast system, which would rule and reign in the latter days before the Heavenly Father brought the end, through his only begotten Son. And that empire speaks to the Edomite power structure, which would pretty much have a grip over the planet Earth. Now, remember, Esau, Edom was blessed, with the fatness of the earth, and the power of the sword, meaning at some point in the future, from the time he received that blessing from Isaac, he would have world domination. All right. He would, control, the fatness of the earth. And it would be primarily through the sword that he would control the fatness of the earth. The fatness of the earth speaks to the resources, and everything therein, through their policy, through their trade, through their European Union, and through ultimately waging war, false flag wars, and many other things. They've gotten control, pretty much of the entire planet Earth. Now, it is a limited rulership. They don't have control as we are going to have control under Yahweh Shai, but they do have rulership and dominion in the earth. Now, the reason they have this dominion is because there was what? As a matter of fact, let's get the book of Revelation, the 6th chapter. Let's see, Revelation, the 6th chapter. In the 4th verse, it says, and there went out another horse that was red. Okay? Red, cold red. And power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. So power was given unto this devil. All right. Now we know his power started primarily with the Greeks, and then you have the Romans, which is what the book of Revelation, the 13th chapter, goes into, and then how that Roman dominance that they would have, the Western Roman dominance that would eventually fall, would be reborn into the earth through a Renaissance period. Now, when you get Revelation, the 13th chapter, it talks about a beast from the sea. Okay? It says, and I stood up on the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the names of blasphemy. All right? Now, I guarantee you this individual wouldn't be able to break these things down. I guarantee you, if you go to this individual's page, he isn't, or they aren't, all right, going into these breakdowns and making and giving understanding of it. That's been done through the labor of the men of the Lord, starting with, the men who labored, leading up to our apostles, bishops, and elders who expounded on these things for us, man. Okay, only for, this truth to become, now kind of like mainstream. Now everybody is acting as if, they know the breakdowns, and if they've been going into these things, y'all ain't been going into these things. Okay, and this is not talking about Satan. This is talking about a world power, a dominant rulership, because when you get Daniel, the 7th chapter, it gives you the 4 beasts that would rule in the world. Okay, and when you get 2nd Esdras, the 11th chapter, it tells you that the 4th beast, all right, will be the power structure that would rule and reign, all right, up until the end, because that 4th beast, the Roman Empire, will be revived. Because so you have the 7 heads, okay, which is it starts with the Greeks, the Romans. You have Germania Major, Germania Minor. You have the Spanish. You have the French, and you have the British. Out of the British came, all right, what is known as the 13 colonies, which led to Babylon the Great. Okay, out of the British also came the establishment of the Zionist state of Israel, all right, where they've colonized, and waged war on the people using their racial superiority ideologies. All right, America, Babylon the Great, using racial superiority ideologies, dominated and crushed. Okay, the 10 horns represent the 10 common markets. All right, which ultimately would lead to what is known as the EU. All right, which are vassals or subordinate countries that have aligned themselves with America, the great whore, right? And this gives them, all right, power over trade, power over resources, all right, military might. Then you add NATO up in there, right? So that's what this is talking about. And upon his heads, the names of blasphemy, because out of this Edomite system and power structure, you would get nothing but anti-Messiah rhetoric being spread. That's what the Renaissance brought about. Okay, those Greco-Roman ideologies, all right, were then spread even further throughout the ends of the earth. Okay, and it's all rooted in anti-Messiah. So when you keep reading, it says, and the beast, okay, the beast which is speaking to a world rulership. Okay, again, when you get Daniel, the 7th chapter, okay, when you get Daniel, the 7th chapter, the vision of the 4 beasts, all right, you have the one who had a lion with eagle's wings, right? You had the Assyrian Babylonian Empire, the second, like, a bear that raised itself up on the side. That's the Medes and the Persians. All right, you had another like a leopard, which is the Greeks, right? And then you have the 4th beast, which is the Romans, the Roman Empire, the Western Roman Empire. Okay, and then as you keep reading, another little horn would issue forth from that 4th beast, which is the revival of Rome. So these are talking about world rulerships when you speak of a beast, all right? When you deal with the term beast in the scriptures, it's speaking to those who are without the order, all right, of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Okay, they don't rule by the law, statutes, and commandments. They are likened unto beasts who need to be tamed. As the scriptures say, be ye not like the wild beast that need to have a bridle over their mouths. These heathen are like wild beasts, and they rule like wild beasts. And our people, through them ruling, have taken on these impulsive beast-like qualities and behaviors. You see? So these beasts would rule in the earth. So when you read Revelation, the 13th chapter, a beast rising from the sea is not talking about Satan. It's more so talking about a world rulership. Now they will rule through the energy of Satan, right? Because in the very next verse it says, and the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. What does that mean? That's speaking of the Greeks, because the Edomite power structure started with the Greeks. That blessing of the sword and everything really started to play out with the Greeks. Okay? And they got their power seat of dominance through the Romans. All right? And we're going to show you that this ain't talking about the spiritual demon Satan, what I'm about to read. So the beast which I saw, like when you look up the word beast as well, the word beast is therion. It says an animal, a wild animal, and the heathen are likened unto animals. This is why when our people got into those heathenistic customs, the Jews who were raised in the customs looked at are people who weren't as savages, as wild beasts. Okay? Ultimately, they have no rule over themselves. Okay? So a wild animal, a wild beast, okay, metaphorically, a brutal, bestial man, savage and ferocious. See that? Savage and ferocious. Okay? So this is speaking of men on earth ruling. Okay? And when you go to this when it says that old serpent, right? You probably still think the serpent in the garden was a literal snake or Satan himself who enticed Eve, right? Revelation 12 and 9, and the great dragon was cast out. What is that talking about? It's talking about Satan himself. That old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world, was cast into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. What is this talking about? Why is it called that old serpent called the devil and Satan? Okay, let's look up this word Satan. Satan, Satanas, okay, adversary, one who opposes, and that's what this system does. Okay, and him being that old serpent, these are the biblical Edomites. These are men ruling on earth under the energy of Satan. As when you read 2 Thessalonians, the second chapter, he who's coming is after the working of Satan. Okay, as you can see at the very end, it says a Satan-like man. So just because you see the word Satan doesn't mean it's talking about the actual spiritual demon Satan. So going back to Revelation, the 13th chapter, real quick, we'll get back to that. It says, "In the beast which I saw," so this rulership which I saw was like unto a leopard, starting with the Greeks. Right, the Greeks are the leopard, and it had the feet of a bear, speaking to how Russia is going to be used to break up this European alliance and this whole Western domination in the very end. In the mouth of a lion, because what? The British, okay, is how ultimately this power structure would lead to America. Okay, the policies and everything that the British brought forth went all the way back to Rome. Right? This is a whole system. He's witnessing this whole system, and the dragon gave him his power and his seat and authority. So the dragon is what gave this beast system its power, seat, and great authority. The dragon is speaking of the Roman Empire. That's where Esau Edom established his dominance. The Roman military, they had never seen anything like it. So, and that's the very ruler authority that they're ruling with unto this day. Okay, the Renaissance brought back what? Greco-Roman ideologies. Okay, that's where we are here in Babylon the Great. What have they been able to bring back into fruition? The ancient Roman way. That's how the image of the beast lives. Now, how do we know this dragon is talking about the Roman Empire? Well, let's go to the very chapter before and read Revelation, the 12th chapter. Okay, it says, "There appeared a wonder in heaven, a woman clothed in the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars," symbolizing what? The woman, the nation of Israel. Okay, "And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered," speaking of the Jews at that time, right, who were in Jerusalem, were what? They were subjected to being a vassal to the Roman Empire. They were in slavery. And many of the Jews were crying to be delivered, right? They were being forced to pay taxes. They were being persecuted, right? And then it says, "The red dragon, there appeared another woman in a wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon." Now here's that red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now you got those two weirdos in Mississippi talking about Satan. This is how he actually looks. You know, he has 7 heads, and he's a 7-headed 10-horn monster, standing up, with a pitchfork, okay, drinking eating those chips, drinking hot sauce, no. Again, this is talking about a system, a rulership on the planet Earth. Okay? And again, as you can see, it has the same 7 heads and 10 horns that we just read about in Revelation, the 13th chapter. So this is going to give you the understanding of who this dragon is that gave this man his seat in authority. Because remember, what did it say in Daniel, the 7th chapter, that the 4th beast would do? Daniel, the 7th chapter. And we're going to read the 11th verse, or let's read the 7th verse. And after this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth, meaning he was blessed with the sword, his military might, and devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue of the feet with it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Okay, and how was the Roman Empire diverse from all of the other kingdoms? The way that they brought in their rulers were through vote, Senate, all right, as opposed to passing down your dominion from ruler to son. Okay, the way that they brought in their emperors and rulers was different, right? And it had 10 horns, those vassals, okay, those subordinate countries that linked themselves, because as Rome conquered, okay, Rome became an idea that you didn't even have to be in Rome. You can be in another country, okay, another territory, and the Roman presence and authority was there because they had dominated, okay, and made particular leagues with these different territories that they would align themselves in militarily support the Roman Empire. So it dominated like no other empire did before. Okay, so again, this is what Revelation, the 12th chapter, is going into. Okay, because it was during that beast that our Lord and Savior was born. It was during the Roman Empire. So going back to Revelation, the 12th chapter, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. The same one. It's the same system that we just read about in Revelation 13. It's the same system that we just read about in Daniel, the 7th chapter. So the great red dragon, which Esau Edom is tied to red, right? Having 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay? And the dragon symbolizes the authority and power he's been given, all right, on the earth. Okay? Through the Roman Empire. All right, the great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads, and his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, that being Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, okay, being in that captivity under the Roman authority, because the northern kingdom had already left. Okay, they weren't in Jerusalem at this time. You had a few, speckled here and there, but the northern kingdom had left at the time of the Assyrian Empire. So who went into the Babylonian, the Medo-Persian, and then the Greco-Roman Empire? It was the Jews, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. So this great red dragon struck down the 3rd of the stars of heaven, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and cast them to the earth, symbolizing that the Jews were in slavery. Okay, the Romans were ruling during the time that the Jews, okay, were on the scene and that the Messiah was born. Okay, as a matter of fact, let's get the book of John, the 11th chapter and the 48th verse. They were speaking of Yahushua. They said, if we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away our place and nation. It was the Romans who were ruling at this time. Okay, now under the Roman authority, okay, you have the Herodian dynasty, which were given dominion, okay, through a Roman emperor to rule over the region of Judea, Jerusalem, right? It says in his tail, whose tail? The dragon, the red dragon's tail, drew down the 3rd part of the stars of heaven. So if this is talking about the spiritual demon Satan, how did this play out in prophecy? Huh? Did he kick the 3rd part of the heavens from The Jews down from heaven? No, man. Being cast down to the earth symbolizes what? Let's get Lamentations, the 2nd chapter, in the 1st verse. Okay? How hath the Lord covered the daughters of Zion with a cloud in his anger, and cast down from heaven unto the earth the beauty of Israel, and remember not his footstool in the day of his anger. So what was happening at this time? The Jews were in captivity. Okay, the Assyrian Babylonian captivity. The Israelites. We know the northern kingdom went into the Assyrian captivity. Okay, and then you have the Babylonian captivity where they raided the temple. So we lost the glory that we had under King Solomon, right? And how have he covered the daughter of Zion, that woman, with the cloud of his anger, and cast down from heaven unto the earth the beauty of Israel, symbolizing us being in a low estate. Okay? And remember not his footstool in the day of his anger. So he allowed his footstool, his enemies, our enemies, to rule over us. Should not the enemies be the Lord's footstool? Well, he didn't remember his footstool. He allowed his footstool to rule over us. The same thing is taking place here in Revelation, the 12th chapter, where you have the Edomites who established a kingdom under the Greeks, and then the Romans, right, who took us down and cast us to the earth. Revelation 12:4, in his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child as soon as it was born. So wait a minute. So Satan himself stood before an actual woman to devour her child? What is this talking about? Now we can really tap into who the dragon is. Okay, the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered to devour her child as soon as it was born. What is this talking about? What history is this talking about? When did the spiritual demon Satan stand before a woman and try to devour her child? Okay, in verse 5, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up unto God and to his throne. So what is this talking about? Who actually tried to kill the Messiah? Well, it was the Herodian dynasty who got rulership, which they were Edomites, Amalekites, but they got rulership and dominion over Jerusalem through the Roman Empire. Just like today, okay, it's through the British and through America that you have the Zionist state of Israel be established. Okay, who gave them that authority was the British and the UN. America has helped establish and keep that authority. So the same thing that's happening now happened back then, in a sense, where you have Edomites ruling, all right, and one tribe, the Amalekites, have dominion over what is known as Judea, Jerusalem. Okay, so where can we find this account? Because it likens this particular nation of people to the dragon, which is likened unto Satan. So who is this red dragon nation of people who's trying to devour the Messiah? Where can we find this account? It said, let's read it again. And the dragon stood before the woman. Okay, first verse 4, it says, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast him to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be devoured, okay, and delivered. The woman which was ready to be delivered, the Jews were ready for a kingdom. Many of the Jews thought the coming of Yahushua, meant that they were getting ready to get the kingdom back then. Okay, that was an ongoing narrative. The Jews were ready to be delivered. They wanted their kingdom, all right, the glory they had under the throne of David, which Solomon forwarded for 40 years. They wanted that glory back. Even the Jews that were with Yahushua before he departed said, Lord, are you at this point going to restore the kingdom to Israel? It wasn't supposed to happen back then, though. So it says, and his tail drew down the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child as soon as it was born. So who's this dragon, and what is this referring to? Well, we can go no further than Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Okay? Now, when Yahushua was born in Bethlehem of Judea, as it was prophesied, in the days of King Herod, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? Because these people had been watching these prophecies. They knew, according to prophecy, a child would have to be born. The scriptures say a child will be born. The scriptures say a young woman of marriageable age will bring forth a child. This child had been promised, all right, throughout all the ages, and this was going to be the one that was going to restore, all right, the Israelites, man, back to glory. Okay, so it says, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and are come to worship him, which was a chariot, right? When Herod, the king, had heard these things, he was troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him, and when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes and the people together, he demanded them where Yahushua should be born. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem, for thus is written by the prophet in Micah the 5th chapter, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. So these prophecies were all written, and here it is. Now they were getting ready to be fulfilled through the birth of Yahushua. So, and when you read verse 7 in the NLT, it says, then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men and learned from them what time that the first star appeared. Then he told them, go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, bring him back. All right, come back and tell me so I can go and worship him. So Herod was acting as if he wanted to go worship, all right, Yahushua, but he really had a plan to put him to death. Okay? So as we keep reading it, we'll keep reading this, right? But who is Herod first? Right? Who's Herod first, man? Herod, let's look up the word Herod, okay? Herodes means heroic. The name of a royal family that flourished among the Jews in the time of Yahushua and the apostles under the Roman authority who was ruling. He was the great, Herod the Great was the son of Antipater of Idumea. Okay? Antipater of Idumea. Okay? Antipater of Idumea, man. So these were Edomites. Okay? That call themselves King of the Jews. Okay? He was an Edomite. Antipater the Idumean. Okay, and he received authority under the Roman Empire, okay, to rule over that region, okay, and they became the Herodian dynasty. So the name of so this red dragon that stood before Yahushua is tied directly to this family who were called Edomites. Appointed king of Judea in BC 40 by the Roman Senate at the suggestion of Anthony, and with the consent of Octavian, he at the Lent overcame great opposition, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, they had infighting, but these are Edomites. Even Herod Agrippa, all right, who ultimately Paul had run-ins with, he was of that dynasty. These are Edomites. Okay, a bunch of savages. Okay, so every time you see Herod, it's not talking about the same Herod. The Herod that put John the Baptist to death wasn't the same Herod we're reading about here. They're all of the same family, though. So, again, what did Herod say? Matthew 2 and 8, he told them, go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child, and when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go worship him. And after this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem, and it went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. And when they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered into the house and saw the child with his mother Mary, all right? And Mary bowed down and worshiped him. Then they opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And when it was time to leave, they returned to their own country, for God had warned them in the dream not to return to Herod. Because what did Herod want to do? Okay, he wanted to put, all right, the Messiah to death, man. But he hid it under the guise. Oh, I want to see him. I want to meet him. I want to see this child. Wow. Because they were lying, talking about they were king of the Jews, man. Okay, but they weren't king of the Jews. You just had a bunch of Edomites convert to Judaism or started to keep the laws, all right, in certain instances to fight in our military. Okay, but they were never converted to being actual literal Jews, man. Okay? After this wise, the men were gone, and an angel of the Lord appeared unto Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, all right, flee to Egypt with the child and his mother." The angel said, "Stay there until I return, because Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." Right? That night, Joseph left for Egypt with the child and Mary, his mother, and they stayed until Herod's death. This fulfilled what the Lord had spoke through the prophet, "I've called my son out of Egypt." Herod was furious when he realized that the men were outwitted. He sent soldiers to kill all the boys around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under, based on the wise men's report. So Herod's brutal act fulfilled what God had spoken through Jeremiah. A cry was heard in Ramah, weeping and mourning, Rachel's children weeping, refusing to be comforted. So again, going back, so with that understanding, let's go back here to Revelation, the 12th chapter, okay? It says, "In his tail," speaking of this red dragon, "threw down the third of the stars of heaven," right? Third part of the stars of heaven, "and did cast him to the earth," had him in slavery. "And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born." So now we know that red dragon ain't talking about Satan. Okay, it's talking about Herod, who had power under the Roman Empire, the Roman authority. Okay, which the dragon is which gave Esau his seat and power and authority in the earth. Okay, it was the Roman Empire. They had conquered more land, more regions than the Greeks did. So it would be through the Roman authority that this beast system would have its stamp. Okay? And even though Herod tried to kill the Messiah, right? The child, was born, and Joseph and Mary with the child flee to Egypt. Okay, so this red dragon was ready to devour the child as soon as it was born, and she brought forth a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to the God and to his throne, because ultimately Yahushua will grow up and be that sacrifice, all right, the death, burial, and resurrection. He returned back to the Father, which solidified our victory. So when you get Revelation, the 13th chapter, right, in the second verse, "The beast which I saw was like unto a leopard." Edomite rulership started with the Greeks. "And the feet were like the feet of a bear." Okay, speaking to Russia, all right, who's going to be at the forefront of ending this beast system and destroying Babylon, which is the revival of Rome. "In his mouth, the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority." The dragon, speaking unto that Roman Empire. Okay, in particular, those Herodians, those Amalekites, okay, who ruled and had dominion under that Roman Empire. The Roman Empire gave him his great seat of authority. Okay, now again, this man, pursuant to 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, and the 8th verse, "And then shall that wicked be revealed, who the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and sign and lying wonders. This man will come to do the work of Satan with counterfeit signs and miracles." And when you all right, do a cross reference, it's going to lead you to Revelation, the 13th chapter. Okay? Straight up. Because this is the man of sin who rules through the energy of Satan. And the Roman Empire, the dragon, is what gave this system that we rule, that's ruling now, its power and great authority. "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and this deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. So how in the hell was the deadly wound healed? What does that mean? Because we know the Western Roman Empire fell, but then it will be a revival through the Renaissance, which this very system we live in is a part of that revival. Okay, we're living in Rome 2.0. And they worship the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. All right, ultimately, people are worshiping the Roman authority. The gods, the idols, it's just now that it's technological, man. Okay? And they worship the dragon who gave power unto the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who shall be able to make war with him? Okay? Because these devils have conquered, pillaged, colonized, okay, and have been at the top pretty much through the authority of the sword, but it will be through the authority given unto them by this Roman Empire, right, which they're ultimately still ruling in until this very day, man. So the dragon is not talking about the spiritual demon Satan, man. Okay? Shut up. Okay? And let us continue, let us teach, because you don't know what the hell you're talking about. Okay? And it's better for you all to stop giving the sacrifices of fools on these comment boards, because you're going to speak condemnation onto yourself if you don't repent and stop. You don't know the Bible. All right. You just learn. Leave the work and the duty of being on the front lines of this ministry to us. Okay. Because you don't, again, with that breakdown you talking about, now we got a whole lot of questions. Well, when did Satan stand before a child? How does, because, yeah, Satan is what gives this system its power and authority. But these things specifically are talking about rulerships that happened on earth. Okay? Hopefully y'all edified. On to the next. Shalom.